Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Friday, January 3rd, 2025. I am Dave Biddle. I'll be joined by Mr. Jonah Booker in just a moment. You're going to love J-Book's backdrop. It looks beautiful. I won't give anything more away. Although if you saw what we learned live, you might know where J-Book's at right now. Welcome into the show, everybody. It's going to be a fun one. We're loving 2025 so far. 2 down, 2 to go for the Buckeyes to win the national championship. And they look like an absolute machine. And how about that SEC? How about those boys? So can't wait to talk to J-Book about a number of things. But I want to let you guys know about Mando whole body deodorant, a great deal you guys can get. Mando was developed by a doctor. It gives you 72-hour odor control. If you've been using the same deodorant for decades like I was, it's time to try something new and something better. That's where Mando comes in. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers or to secure any type of post-holiday gifts that you want to throw out there. If you forgot to give somebody a gift, just give them some Mando. As a special offer for listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. It's Bucknuts, easy to remember. Exclusive code Bucknuts. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use code Bucknuts at shopmando.com, shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. Oh, yeah. Now, with no further ado, drum roll, please. Let's bring in Mr. Jonah Booker, live from the Bellagio in Las Vegas. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Happy Friday to you. How are you?
I appreciate you getting up. I didn't even know you were still in Vegas till I saw your beautiful face this morning. And then I see this, the gold in the background. Oh, the Bellagio. I mean, look at you. You're living large, man. I love it.
Yeah, it was one of those weeks, Dave, that there was no way I was going to miss the Friday show after that BTA whooping that Ohio State delivered to Oregon. Hey, these guys are cracking me up on the comments. BTA Fridays, Bucknuts 425.
That's
Uh,
right. That's
that's
right.
great.
BTA. I love that that's like associated with you now. I absolutely love it. Geez, I don't even know where to start, man. I mean, we covered the Oregon game pretty well, but it was so much fun going back and rewatching it. I've now rewatched it, I think, 2.5 times. So I've watched it like 3.5 times total. I love rewatching games like that because there's no pressure. You know exactly what's going to happen, especially just an absolute bludgeoning like that.
With this game, Dave, it's like we talked about the post game show. You can kind of feel the momentum. You can really feel the confidence building with this football team. The way that they just went out there and absolutely bullied Oregon, especially in the trenches, Dave. I haven't seen that in a very long time. I mean, they don't get me wrong. They played extremely well against Tennessee, but to generate 8 sacks, the amount of pressures moving Dylan Gabriel off his mark, and then the offensive line just absolutely dominating. I love Big Dave, Mateo's dad. He's nowhere to be found after talking all of that smack, saying the twin towers of Mateo and Jordan Birch were going to come out here and dominate that game. And them boys combined for about 1 tackle, barely had their name called the entire game. That's a hat off in a testament to Larry Johnson, Justin Fry, having those guys ready to go. But this Ohio State team is absolutely playing with their hair on fire. It's incredible to see. Right now, I'm going into this Texas game with the utmost confidence because I feel like anybody who steps in front of them, they're going to get absolutely ran over by this runaway freight train.
I love Donovan Jackson's dad waiting for it. He waited for it, and then after the game, he tweeted back at Big Dave like, "Keep my son's name out of your mouth," especially if he getting dominated the entire. I believe they showed Big Dave on the, unless it was somebody else. They showed him a couple times during the game. Looked like someone stole his dog in the stands, assuming that was him. Unless somebody else had his son's jersey on. So I want to get to the defense in a moment. I am so impressed with everything Jim Knowles is doing, basically using Caleb Downs as like a hybrid Mike. It's crazy. And that just frees up Sonny Styles and Cody Simon to play free, and they're playing great. Cody Simon's turned into just an absolute force at middle linebacker. Before we get to that, how do they keep their edge? Because like if they play like this, no one's going to touch them. But like they came in pissed off against Tennessee. They came in pissed off against Oregon because they had already lost to Oregon. The people, even though they were favored in both games, they were still pissed off. Now everybody's going to be telling them, oh, yeah, you're going to go down to Texas and beat Texas. I think they will. But I hope they keep that edge, man. They keep that. As Urban said, I want an angry football team.
That is a very, very good point, Dave. And I'm glad that you brought that up. I'm going to be stewing on that if leading up to that Texas game because you're right. You had everything to play for. Like you're coming off that last Michigan game, and then you're going into the opportunity to play at home against an SEC team. So you automatically have fuel for that game. You had the rematch factor against Oregon. So they were Will Howard even talked about it. But I did really like what Will Howard said. He said I've never beaten Texas, even coming from the Big 12. So this is something that I definitely look forward to. I think that the quarterback right now is playing with an edge. His leadership is contagious. Now you can start talking about a situation to where, yes, we're an angry football team, but we now realize if we play to the full potential, you're thinking this as a player, if we play to our full potential, there is not a team in college football that wants to see us right now. Once you start combining this much talent with a very confident football team, as you get deep into this run, it's not necessarily okay. What can I use to really motivate me with kind of like how Kirby Smart in Oregon was saying, "Hey, everybody was doubting us." That kind of mind warfare type of deal. You just need to line up and say, "Hey, when we play our game, we can't be stopped." And I think that's kind of the mindset that they're going to have to use going forward.
Man, you played defense in college. You must be loving what you're seeing. I mean, I can't believe what I'm seeing. 8 sacks. I mean, they didn't even touch Dylan Gabriel the first game. I'm like, I wanted to see some grass stains. He had grass stains, early in the game, then had, paint on the helmet, and then by the end of the game, he had grass stains all over him. I love it. I mean, 8 sacks. And Jim Knowles is just a mad scientist, man. The stuff that he's cooking up, basically using, as I said, Caleb Downs as like a hybrid mic. It's just so much fun to watch.
The one thing that stands out to me the most, Dave, is how physical and how hard these guys are bringing it. I mean, they are just absolutely laying boys out left and right. Tennessee, Oregon, doesn't matter. You get in front of it, you're going to get absolutely smashed. So once your defense starts to set the tone and you're laying people out, that right there kind of dictates how you're going to be playing because it's an attitude, it's a mindset. But all three levels of the defense are playing out of their mind, Dave. I mean, they are playing this defensive line. They're hey, they are just they're unblockable right now. And then when you have Cody Simon probably playing the best linebacker play that we've seen in I don't know how long. And then you look at that secondary. I mean, Denzel Burt. We called it. I say, what did I say? I said this is going to be a Denzel Burt
Yep.
bounce back game. He's going to play extremely well. And then when you have Cody Simon out there, and then the one part of the secondary that doesn't get talked about a lot is how well Jordan Hancock is playing. He's kind of that wild card, Dave, because he can play on the back end, he can play in the slot, he can be someone who can eliminate one of your top slot wide receivers. The fact that he's able to play so well and nobody really mentions his name kind of tells you how good that they're playing on that back end. I mean, I don't know if it's the gloves that they put on Davidson Igbinosun that they said they were going to have him practice with, but he's I mean, his when you watch Davidson Igbinosun, his footwork is precise as far as his technique. He's not panicking, and that was the thing that we talked about with him is he was always in really good coverage back there. He would just I don't know what it was. It was a more of a mental thing to where he was just start grabbing and holding and giving away cheap first downs because of 5 yard holding or 15 yard pass interference. Now that they're eliminating those penalties, Dave, they're having to make offenses really work for everything. Everything looks like it's extremely hard for opposing offenses just to even cross the 50-yard line. Not alone like, hey, we're because during the season you got into the red zone, the best red zone defense in all of college football. Now you're saying, hey, just to cross the 50 is hard against this Ohio State defense.
And Igbinosun using his head, huh? He, not grabbing the receiver and literally was in perfect position there where the ball bounces off his helmet, but he was in perfect position, and he wasn't grabbing the receiver to your point. And yeah, he was. I've always been high on Igbinosun. I didn't understand why he was so grabby. Another great job by the coaches to, coach that out of them. Speaking of penalties, lack thereof, I should say. And I'm glad we're doing this after a blowout win. I can't believe how Ohio State's defensive linemen were absolutely tackled a few times. Just as somebody were joking online, those weren't holds; they were hugs. But zero holding penalties the entire game. Did they call maybe one on Oregon? I don't think they did. Maybe they called one. But Ohio State has the least amount of penalties called against them of any team in the country this year. 134 out of 134. So the officials are not giving Ohio State a break at all yet. Doesn't matter. This defense is just destroying everybody.
It's absolutely unbelievable, Dave. If you watch this Oregon game on the replay on the Skycast, I mean, Oregon basically said, you know what, we can't block them, so we're just going to tackle them.
Right.
We're gonna put them in chokeholds. We're going to tackle them down to the ground. And the referees is blowing my mind. Like, you're right there. You're 5 yards standing there, literally watching the defensive lineman getting tackled from the Oregon's offensive line, and you don't call anything. Like, I hate. I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist, Dave, but something just isn't right. Like, there's no way that you Ohio State is last with penalties being called against them, and they're blatant. There is not like, okay, ticky tack or something like that. Like, guys are getting choke slam out there, and they refuse to call the hose. And I was glad that Larry Johnson actually spoke up about it. Somebody asked him post game on the field about all the holdings, and Larry Johnson said this is getting ridiculous at this point. I mean, officiating overall for the most part in college football has been pretty bad. But what we're seeing, the lack of penalties against Ohio State is absolutely crazy. Oregon just basically said, "Oh, you're not going to call holding. All right, then that's the way it's going to be. I'm just going to hold on every single play. I'm just going to literally tackle your defensive lineman until you guys start to decide that you're going to call these holds."
We're going to get a chance to talk with Ryan Day today at noon. That we got word of that yesterday. So Ryan Day today at noon, programming note. I'm still kicking around some ideas. I kind of want to ask him about that, but if we only get one or two questions, I might not want to burn it on him, putting him in an unwinnable situation. What's he going to do? To get up there and rip the officials going into the Texas game? It's like, I'm sure everybody inside the wax, like, this is absolutely ridiculous. Like you and I are saying, like, they're not getting any calls at all, but hey, keep playing like that. It won't matter. I'm curious. I mean, Ryan Day, it's crazy, man. Like, after the Michigan game, everybody's calling for his head. Now he's 2 wins away from the national championship, and not just 2 wins away. Ohio State is the betting favorite. They're favored by 6.5 over Texas. They are the betting favorite to win it all. It's kind of crazy to me, man. If they beat Texas, they're going to face either Penn State or Notre Dame for the national title. And the SEC is having such a bad year, and it's hilarious.
Oh man, I love it, Dave. Just everybody just talking smack about the SEC, like they're totally getting exposed right now. The thing about the SEC, and if anybody watched a lot of the SEC ball this year, the offenses for the most part, especially the quarterback play in the SEC, is absolute dumpster juice. It is terrible brand of football that they're playing on the offensive side of the football. So once they come across any type of semblance of a team that can stretch the field vertically, they're in trouble. I mean, the defenses are pretty comparable than what you see in the Big Ten, but right now, and it's crazy to say this, there's better offensive football as a whole that's being played in the Big Ten than what you see in the SEC. Now you got Jackson Dart down at Ole Miss is an absolute stud, but for the most part, the quarterback play in the SEC is terrible. And I also think that the NIL and the transfer portal, excuse me, has really leveled the playing field. No longer do the SEC have the bag man that's going to give them that leg up right now. With everything being pretty much legal, you're starting to see a lot more parity in college football. Now, with this path, Dave, to the championship, I mean, the one thing that we're probably, and it's probably too early to say, hey, this is an edge or not, but you look at all the teams who won the conference championships bounced out of those playoff. Like, is there something to being able to play that first round game, get hot? And it kind of reminds you of the NCAA tournament for March Madness. The team that gets hot in a tournament that's playing their best football at the right amount of time. And we always used to say, hey, with Jim Tressel had the um Jim Tressel had the saying, Dave, play your best football in November. We might need to be pushing that back and say, hey, playing your best football in December, because if you're starting to play your best football in December, once the tournament hits, you got an absolute shot. But right now, and I think that one thing that they definitely need to do, the seating needs to be corrected. Boise State had no business having an actual bye. Arizona State, even though they had a great season, they didn't have a bye. Arizona State got absolutely cheated by Texas
Yes.
because that was a clear targeting call. Arizona State on the move. Probably if they'd have called that targeting call, they'd have had the ball like at Texas 30, 35-yard line with a minute to go to win the game. And how do you go to the replay booth and saw that this kid literally just laid this dude out helmet to helmet was the first initial contact. Dude's hands are like stuck because he's laid out, knocked out cold. And you're like, oh, that's no targeting. And we've seen targeting call a whole lot less for people being thrown out the game and then something that was clearly blatant. But that's okay. Ohio State got something for Texas. We're going with and it's kind of great because Ohio State will be the ones who sends the SEC packing. Like they're holding on hope for a Big 12 team that can get them to the championship, but it's going to be the Buckeyes who completely demolishes the final leg of the SEC championship run.
Yeah, not only does the SEC only have one team left, like you're saying, but yeah, it's a Big 12 convert. Like, Texas has been in the league like less than a year, and they're already carrying the flag for the SEC. Yeah, man. I mean, I feel like replay officials in college football are incompetent at the best, corrupt at the worst. Pick one. Neither are good because we see it too
Yeah.
much. Why is there no transparency? Why is there no transparency? Why can't we hear the conversations? I would love to hear the rationale how that wasn't targeting. That was textbook targeting. And I'm big on I think they overcall targeting. But that was textbook targeting. And I don't like heard Doug Gottlieb say, I didn't hear the podcast, but people were talking about on our front row message board said, "Oh, you can't make that call at that point in the game." Like, what are you talking about? Yeah, that was clearly targeting. Replay officials are corrupt, man.
Yeah. I really wish there was some type of transparency so that you can kind of get through their mind and their logic to say, hey, we can't call this a targeting. Like why? Like let's find out why. But the one thing watching that Arizona State versus Texas game, Arizona State low key whooped Texas up front in the trenches. I mean, they gave Quinn Ewers all kinds of problems, that Arizona State defensive line. So if this Buckeye defensive front comes to play like they did against Oregon, Quinn Ewers is going to be running for his life. I mean, when you also look at that Arizona State offense, they put up over 500 yards. Truth be told, if you watch that game from start to finish, Arizona State probably should have won that game by more than a touchdown. I think they had 3 to 4 times that they went into the red zone and came away with 0 points. And then Texas also on the second touchdown took a 75-yard punt return to the house. So there was all kinds of like weird things here, but Texas hasn't looked good. Their offense hasn't looked good in a very long time. I mean, they didn't look good against Arizona State. They struggled in the SEC championship against Georgia. They look very suspect against their in-state rival against Texas A&M. So when you look at it, you probably have one team who is extremely hot, feeling really good about themselves going into this game, and then you also have a Texas team that's probably like, "Whew, we barely got out of there. It took an overtime win that we probably shouldn't have won against Arizona State just to get to this point." I question how much gas is left with Texas A&M right now. And then if you look at their offensive line, they're losing some
Yes.
key pieces on their offensive line, like their tackles. They lost another tackle against Arizona State. That's like saying, "Hey, we're going into this playoff game, the playoffs, and you lose Donnie Jackson and Josh Fryer." Now you're trying to say, "Hey, we're going against the best defensive front that we face all season with a makeshift offensive line that we don't know that's going to be able to hold up because they couldn't hold up against Arizona State, and the talent difference between Arizona State and Ohio State, it's a whole different type of ball game."
Yeah, it's I mean, you read my mind there. I was going to ask you about this matchup disadvantage for Texas. Huge matchup advantage for Ohio State, especially this re-engineered Ohio State pass rush that we're seeing since the first Oregon game. They've been one of the best in the country, culminating with what we saw in the Rose Bowl with 8 sacks. Now they're going up against, as you said, a makeshift Texas offensive line, one that's struggled. We'll get to Ohio State's offensive line, which Justin Fry is doing a great job against Texas's defensive line to close the show. But you're right, man. I mean, I think this is a Ohio State can really get after Quinn Ewers, and Quinn does not. This is the case for most quarterbacks. Quinn does not respond well when he's getting hit, which I don't know many quarterbacks that do, but like he tends to respond a little worse maybe than your average quarterback. So I think that's a matchup advantage for Ohio State for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a matchup advantage here, and I'm curious to see how what Jim Knowles does, because the last time that we faced a Sark type of offense here, he put Kerry Combs in the blender with a lot of window dressing and stuff. But this Ohio State defense, they usually don't fall for those type of window dressing. If you can lock down those Texas wide receivers, Quinn Ewers will hold that football there. He's not very mobile in the pocket here. I really think that this is a situation to where when you watch Georgia and how they handled that Texas offense, Texas could barely move the football against Georgia. You're talking about a comparable defense, what Ohio State is able to do, what you probably will see against Georgia. I say this: if Ohio State's offense scores 24-28, I can't see Texas offense scoring that many points. I mean, the only path to victory when you're watching this Texas team is they are going to have some type of special teams play like they did against Arizona State, or they're going to have to bank that it's a low scoring affair. I don't think they have the horses to get into a shootout with Ohio State's offense right now.
We've been critical of Justin Fry, and I think rightfully so at times. So now I want to give him his props here. Rusty on YouTube, has Fry done enough to save his job, or is his position still open to scrutiny? It's still open for scrutiny, but he's done enough to save his job. I mean, to lose 40% of your starting offensive line, and probably the two best with Seth McLaughlin and Josh Simmons, and be playing the way they are now, man. Kudos to Fry and kudos to all those offensive linemen up front.
The way the offensive line is playing outstanding, Dave. And then I think we talked about it. There's something along the lines of like 19th combination of the way that they've been shuffling the offensive linemen all throughout the season with different guys. But it's a situation to where they're playing with confidence, and we really didn't know what that guard rotation was going to look like, and it's turning out to be working out really well. So you couldn't be more happier with the offensive line play. I mean, they're keeping Will Howard pretty clean back there. He's barely getting touched. I mean, they do give up some pressures here and there, and that's to be expected. But for the most part, they're playing out of their mind. The biggest thing when it came to Justin Fry, I don't think anybody was necessarily down on him as far as his development. The biggest thing for him is the lack of recruiting is a huge issue because you're in a predicament right now to where you're having to squeeze every ounce of juice out of this offensive line right now because you don't have the adequate numbers because of the recruiting misses. If they can, I don't know, maybe just spitballing here, Dave, bring somebody who can come in and help this guy recruit. Excuse me, because if they can recruit, and maybe the portal is the way that they're going to operate right now because they got the Rice kid who a lot of people are saying that it's probably a second round NFL offensive lineman if he declares this year. So maybe getting guys out of the portal and he just operates better that way as opposed to bringing in high school recruits. But when it comes to the offensive line as a whole, their play beautiful. I mean, they're playing some great football right now. Has Justin Fry kept his job? That's something to be determined. It's going to be in a situation where if you win a national championship, I don't think you can go and say, "Hey, I'm firing this guy." I mean, that's unrealistic. As much as we are going to bang on him about his recruiting misses, if you win a national championship, the end goal of all of this is to bring that trophy back to Columbus, put it in a Woody Hayes facility. And if this guy was a major linchpin and helping you achieve that goal, then you have to consider that we have to bring this guy back for for the simple fact of the development of the offensive line. But we need to figure out how we can get better at recruiting. It could be chasing the tail type of situation to where, hey, if you win a national championship, then maybe recruiting automatically picks up as a sheer result of being a national champion.
I saw with Alabama, the big Alabama kids in the portal, offensive lineman. Maybe the Buckeyes can land him. They already landed two. I love the kid from Rice. He's right. You had guys like Tom Lugan, Bill, that were like apoplectic that he didn't go pro. They're like, wait, what? He's not going pro. He'd be like a second round pick, and like not like if he goes to Ohio State for a year, he can develop into a second round pick. Like he'd be a second round pick right now. I love that they're getting that kid. All right, I got to let you go, but I got to ask. I mean, are you going to hit the buffet with the fam later at the beautiful Bellagio?
We're gonna do a little exploring today. We always love it, the Bellagio. Like the atrium is beautiful here. Excuse me, Vegas is taking my voice away, Dave. Um, that's to be expected. Went
Yeah.
and saw the show last night. Probably won't do the buffet, but I actually got to go back over here to the Cosmopolitan today. I need to cash this Notre Dame money line ticket that I placed last night. And there were some people that asked in the comments, did I put that? Did I bet that Ohio State versus Texas? You better believe it. So it gives me a reason to have to come back to Las Vegas in a couple weeks after I cash that Ohio State whooping up on Texas, and we'll put our staff predictions here, man. But I think I need to put it up there, Dave. I'm thinking right now they got it set at what, 6.5,
Yeah.
Buckeyes versus Texas. I'm thinking at least a 14-point type of win. Um, and I keep harping back to it, Dave. I felt like I've seen this movie before, and it was in 2014, to
Yeah.
where after Ohio State beat Alabama, and they went on to say, "Hey, we're hot right now," because it started with the Wisconsin game in the Big Ten championship, and then once they beat Alabama, at that point you just felt it in the aura around this program was like nobody's beating this team right now. Like the way that they're trucking people, it's going to take a monumental effort from another program to beat this hot Ohio State team right now. So yes, I got my Buckeye ticket for today. We're probably going to hang out. I got to head back. Kid starts flag football tomorrow. Coach Booker's going to be on the sidelines calling up the run and shoot. But if I got some kids that can't throw the football, we might look like the service academy out there running the option.
Whatever it takes. And we got to get some shirts made up, like some of the commenters were saying, with BTA on it. Little
Yes.
BTA. We have BIA. We need BTA as well. So great stuff from Mr. Jonah Booker live from Las Vegas. Again, everybody, Ryan Day today at noon. So keep it locked to Bucknuts for that. Thanks again to J Book. Thanks to all of you. We appreciate it very much. Hope everyone has a great day and a great weekend.